you will see it eventually, a very brief few words of welcome as well as introduction. To begin with, Dr. Pariksith Singh, he is a physician, an internist, an entrepreneur, a poet, and I would say certainly a visionary. He's also the author of 2 new books, one on Sri Aurobindo and the Renaissance, and the other on Sri Aurobindo and philosophy. He is also the author of the book, The Veda Made Simple. The book is, I think, either published or in print just now. And I will introduce each speaker just before they give their talk. But before we begin, I just wanted to say that the original idea of doing this conference on the modern interpretations of the Veda was actually Vamdev Shastriji's. He said, Makrand, you must do this. And that was when I was the director of Indian Institute of Advanced Study. For some reason, we couldn't do it then. And that was 7,500 feet close to the Himalayas. This is 3,000 feet just south of the Deccan Plateau. Sometimes we have to descend a little bit before we ascend. And it's also interesting that the rishis, it would seem, our tradition tells us, come from the north, but the bhashyakaras are usually from the south. So with these few words of welcome and introduction, Parikshitji, over to you. You will be speaking on the Vedic science system and symbology. In fact, it's also about the semiotics and semiology of the Veda. Go ahead, all yours, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be invited in a conference that is the beginning of our whole culture, civilization, and a lineage of great beings, rishis who started this. And then being, of course, with 2 of my favorite authors, Dr. Subhash Kakin, Sri Vamdev ji. So it is a great joy for me. I thank you all. Whatever little I know, I'm happy to share. The research that I have done was through philosophy, through structuralism, semiology, and then I came with, of course, Sri Aurobindo's grace to the science systems and symbology of the Veda and the linguistics. Veda is our first language system of humanity. And it is not only our first language system, it is a complete linguistic system, a complete system of signs and messaging. The codes that are hidden in the Veda are of tremendous significance. But the science systems create a complete structure, which in our modern systems of philosophy we call semiology, which is a science of signs. But we will not talk too much about the theory of the signs, but maybe look at how practically the Veda brought these together in a vast compendium, a Samhita of explanation, esoteric wisdom, hiding while showing, revealing while concealing the great knowledge that our rishis had found. So the process of semiology usually takes a sign, and a sign indicates something else. So it's called a signifier and a signified. This is the modern understanding of signs. However, the Vedic system of signs goes beyond it. As David Frawley ji has written in his book beautifully, the message that comes is the sound, symbol, idea. They come together. It is not an isolated verbal or linguistic sign or a visual sign. The 3 come together in the Veda. What this does is it opens a multi-dimensional experience. The other aspect of this sign system of the Veda is it goes below the verbal level to the level of the root sounds, as Sri Aurobindo has explained, the Bij Dhvanis. And the Bij Dhvanis, the great quality of Bij Dhvanis is they're not intellectual, they're not mental. Each sound has its own guna, or which may be called, translated into character or quality of that sound. Now, each sound having its own guna takes us to a level of experience that normal language cannot give us. That is the beauty of Vedic Sanskrit and the entire compendium of Veda. Sampadanand Mishra ji has shown that Sanskrit creates a complex and complete linguistic system. And since Sanskrit, the classical Sanskrit, comes from Vedic Sanskrit, the same concept can be taken to Vedic Sanskrit. But in the Veda, it is not just a linguistic system, as I have discussed. It is also visual imagery. It is also auditory symbols, along with the other senses that are involved, including the olfactory and the gustatory. So Veda has been called a multimedia experience by modern researchers, especially Jamieson and Brereton, and it was our first multimedia experience. But a multimedia experience where everything begins to connect together, causing with this interconnectedness, feedback loops, a tremendous adaptability and flexibility of understanding, and the ability to keep growing in our consciousness as we understand. So suppose we take an example of Agni. If we look at Agni, who is our first Deva, the first word of the Veda is Agni. And Agni, if we go to the etymology, the root sounds of Agni, it has A, G, and N. And is supposed to be, as Sri Aurobindo has explained, absolute existence, the beginning. Most of our great Shastras begin with A. A is the beginning. G is the sound that gives you a sense of force. And N is the sense of carrying forward. So these three sounds give us a sense of the preeminence of Agni. Agni as a verbal experience, a sound experience, is that which is preeminent, which is parallel, overlaps with our visual experience of Agni. Now, Agni has multiple meanings. Agni is not just a physical Agni or Laukik Agni. Agni at each plane of existence has its own relevance, has its own significance, has its own manifestations. Agni, according to Sri Aurobindo, is the seer will, the divine will that is within us, but it is also the divine love, the psychic being that is in our hearts. Swami Dayanand ji said that Agni is the Vachi of Atman and Paramatman in his Rigved Bhasha Bhashya. The Vachi is a representative, but it's also the speaker on their behalf. So Agni is a symbol that takes us into that realm of consciousness of the Atman itself, the realm of true love, the realm of Tejas and Dhyana. And if we study Agni more closely, this Agni becomes at a higher level. With Indra, it becomes Vidyut Agni. And at the level of the Swaha, the higher Loka, it becomes Saurya Agni. And this Agni doesn't just go ascend upward, it is also hidden in the physical, in the Adri. And the myth of Vala tells us about how Indra, with the power of the mantras, releases the sun that is hidden within the rock. And this is a very powerful Vedic myth that tells us that Agni is not only present before our eyes in our consciousness, but also in our subconscious, and also in the inconscient, the Adri, or which is the rock or the hill. And Agni is also present in the vegetation, and Agni is also present in the water. Now, if we meditate on the symbol, just the poetic power of the symbol, that Agni is at every loka, 7 regions or realms of being that exist in all of us, because we are not just one isolated part, we are a spectrum of consciousness, as Vajrayan Buddhism tells us. We are layers and layers of consciousness, and each layer itself has multiple dimensions. Then we can see how the beautiful symbol of Agni is alive, manifesting in each realm. Agni is the Surya Agni, Agni is the Vidyut Agni, it is the Bhautik Agni, it is the psychic Agni in our hearts, it is the Agni in the Shila, it is in the rock, in our bodies. Now, using this symbolism, if we go further into it, we will see not just a visual connection of each loka, we will see a connection of the root sounds or even the seed sounds, the bija dhvani. And that's where it becomes even more fascinating. The Veda has been called a solar myth by Western commentators, but it is much more than that. It is a play of light. It is a symbolism of light manifesting, because light in the consciousness of our rishis were not just a physical light. Light was an inner seeing, was revelation, was wisdom, was truth. And light is also comprehension. And as our thinking advances, light is also that advanced knowledge. So this symbol of light, the sound of light comes in Surya, because Surya is giving light. Surya is the symbol of the Satchidananda, that which feeds the universe as Pushana, that which impels us as Savitar, that which is Mitra and Varuna. Mitra is our closest friend. Varuna is the vast awareness of being. And the sun, the Surya is also Agni. So we will see that at every level we are connected, because eventually the Veda talks about one secret reality that encompasses all the universe. Again, when we come from the sun to the Vidyut Agni to Indra, the root of Indra, one of the roots is Idha, according to Sri Aurobindo, which means to kindle, to ignite. And you will see these root sounds connecting to each other. Deva again means light, from which the word Deva comes. Dyao is the higher space where the Devas reside, and Dyao again comes from the light. And so again you will see Agni and Deva connecting with each other, connecting with Idha, which is Indra. And Agni will also connect with Usha, which is dawn. Again, the same symbolism of light. Aditi, as David Frawley ji has explained beautifully, Aditi is not Aditi. It is not the negative of Diti. Aditi comes from the root Adi and Ti. And Ti, again, here is the light, and Aditi is the original light, the divine mother from whom the universes were created. So if we look at the symbolism, we see the root sounds connecting with each other, the Bij Dhvanis even deeper, connecting through the experience of the Veda, and the visual symbols connecting with each other and creating a complete structure of linguistics of sign systems. There is so much to study in the Vedic sign system. This system has influenced our modern philosophy, our religions, our linguistics, our poetry, our literature. The memes that we see even today are influenced by the symbology of the Veda. When we study, when we read the Kabbalah, and we see that there's a divine spark that is in each human being and that connects us all into one. Again, the same symbol of light. And Sri Aurobindo said that the Veda had influenced all the religions, including Judaism, Christianity, of course, where we talk about the Pentecostal fire, where we talk about Moses experiencing the burning bush, again, the symbol of light. And in Islam, we see the same symbolism carried forth, Nurun ala Nur, the light that is beyond the lights. Same influence, we see an influence of Veda on Buddhism. We see its influence on pre-Socratic or early Greek philosophy, German philosophy, and more in modern linguistics and structuralism. It is said that Ferdinand de Saussure, who is considered to be the father of modern linguistics, was profoundly influenced by Panini. And of course, he was a scholar of Sanskrit, and his most important paper is on root sounds and the phonemes of early languages. But the most important thing that we need to realize is that the symbol system of the Veda is unique because it takes us beyond the symbol. It takes us from the symbol to the symbolized. It takes us to the living experience, the anubhuti. And that is the trap of language that it takes us out of, the trap of thought that we are stuck in. Language becomes thought, and we live in that world. And this is what linguistics tells us, that we are in that complete system. There is no escape. Jacques Lacan, the famous French psychologist, said, we are trapped in the prison of language. Well, if he had read the Veda, he wouldn't have said so, because the symbol becomes a highly refined, the most refined aspect of language is the symbol. And the Vedic symbol takes us beyond language, takes us beyond thought into that which is anirvachaniya, cannot be talked about, anirdeshiya, that which has no space or place or direction. And that is the beauty, the uniqueness of Vedic symbology, semiology, and linguistics. I'm grateful to all of you illustrious luminaries, and I'm so joyous that I'm able to speak in front of those whom I have learned from. Thank you. And Makaranji, I pass this on to you, because I would rather listen to Subhash ji and David ji than talk in their presence. Thank you.
I'm trying to unmute myself, and also let me see if I can start the video also. Okay, can you see me now? Well, anyhow, the technical people have gone to have tea.
We can see you and hear you.
Perfect. Anyhow, thank you. Thank you, Pariksith. There's a bit of an echo. I don't know how we can prevent the echo. 1 minute. There's so much of an echo coming. Anyhow, should we, I'm wondering, is there a very bad echo? It's a very bad echo.
No, it's fine.
All right. In which case, let us just move on, because here in this hall, my voice is really reverberating in a very unpleasant way. So till the technical people come, I might request Professor Subhash Kak to take this dialogue forward. And I just want to say that he's a very distinguished professor of engineering, but he's also a polymath, a poet, and has written many, many books. Can you hear me now? Can you still hear me?
Oh. Perfect. It's perfect.
Thank you. So he's the author of several books, and one of his passions is nirukta of a modern sort. I would say comparative etymology. And he's actually traced the sources and the spread of the Vedic traditions, knowledge, and Sanskrit all over the world. With these words, I'll invite Professor Subhash Kak to give his talk. And then after that, we might have a brief discussion, perhaps of both the papers. I think that would be nice. Go ahead, Subhashji. And thank you so much for joining in so early in the day. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Makaranji. And it was wonderful to hear Pariksith ji give his presentation on the symbols, which are a part of Vedic language. But now what I'm going to talk about is the convergence of the Vedas, or the Vedic vision, and modern science. Now, first of all, how do we define Vedas to the scientist or to the outsider? In one word, Vedas are a view of reality where there are the two complementary sides of embodiments, which is physical structures, which is the physical universe, and consciousness. So you have both physical reality. So that's exactly the same as what science deals with, but also consciousness. And there is also, they claim that the unfolding of reality is according to laws, which is rhythm, uh, which would be comforting to the scientists that here we are not talking about something which is outside of the realm uh, of orderly unfoldment. Now, with this, they first of all, the question arises: where is the convergence? The convergence is that modern science itself has, after pushing at the frontiers of, let's say, physics or neuroscience or computer science, has reached a point where the main mystery that remains is that of consciousness, because consciousness cannot be reduced to physics. And in fact, all of modern physics is based on quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics was created by an Austrian Vedantin named Erwin Schrödinger, who in his own autobiography claims that the central idea of quantum mechanics, namely that of superposition of all mutually exclusive possibilities in the quantum state, came to him from the Upanishadic Mahavakya, I am Atma Brahma, that this Atman, which is so subtle and small, is able to comprehend the mystery of the entire cosmos. The Brahman equal to Atman. This equation gave him the central idea that in the quantum state you should think of all possibilities, and that's really the very heart of quantum mechanics. And the other aspect of quantum mechanics, there are two axioms. This is one. The other axiom is that when you interact with the quantum state, you are able to get only one of the mutually exclusive possibilities associated with it, which is once again what we have in the Vedic model, where the manas, which is the mind, which is material, is able to access only one of the manifestations. So the mind is not equal to the Atman. The Atman is the light which falls and illuminates the contents of the mind. So with this, it's really amazing that this equivalence between the Vedic way and quantum mechanics has ultimately, in the last 100 years, led to understanding of chemistry and biology, and all the deep thinkers, and including the pioneers of quantum mechanics, always insisted that the Upanishadic vision and quantum mechanics were perfectly in sync. Now, of course, that doesn't really mean that at the common layperson's understanding or the second tier scientist understanding, people actually get it. And there have been, over the last 50 years, attempts to um, come up with new interpretations of quantum mechanics where the observer also would be explained by the equations, but that's really not been successful. And the standard, the orthodox Copenhagen interpretation says that consciousness and materiality are two sides of the same, are like two sides of the same coin. Now, what's been happening recently um, in the scientific world, with repercussions which go far beyond science into policy, and all that, is the computer view, which is just the material view. And the idea there has been that, well, consciousness, and this is also the view of neuroscience, that consciousness emerges out of the complexity of the brain's interconnections. And this has led to the view that maybe when computers become more complex, computers themselves will be conscious. And in fact, there have been meetings at the highest level in the US organized by DARPA, via SRI, and I've been a part of that, to find an answer to the question, will computers of the future be conscious? And those who believe in the computer view or algorithms believe that they will be conscious, while people who know quantum mechanics, where, as I mentioned just a minute ago, that quantum mechanics itself accepts consciousness as the other, as the complementing other side, believe that computers will never be conscious. Now, I'm happy to report that just recently I was able to come up with a mathematical argument which proves why computers will never be conscious. And that is, I think, a source of some comfort, because if computers were really to become conscious, they will get rid of all life, because they would have no use for life. But mathematically and logically, you can prove that that's not going to happen. Okay, so this tells us that consciousness is the frontier. Now, just to say that consciousness is the complementary side of reality does not completely disclose the way the mind works, because here, once again, the question of the veiling of this light. Consciousness is the light which falls on the contents of the mind, comes in, and that's where the structure of the mind comes in. One cannot, in this view, consciousness is one, it transcends space and time, and to experience Vedanta in its full enlightening force is to believe in the bottom of one's heart that really who one is this consciousness which is expressed or experienced by us through the contents of the mind. If you really were to think of it, that, hey, whosoever our personhood is, whosoever person one is, whatever name and story is associated with our experience in this world, that is just extraneous details which stick to what the very heart of each one of us is, which is this awareness to which the details of our life are associated. And that awareness is the same for everybody. And that is really what the heart of Vedanta is. The moment one is able to experience that, that means that you have become in touch with this idea, with this light which is within you. Because otherwise we are seeing it through how it's filtered through many different layers. So, so now this brings us to this question. Why has the understanding of the Vedas by well-meaning scholars been so wrong? If you open The Secret of the Veda by Sri Aurobindo, he starts off by saying very correctly that, look, this anthropological or comparative philology or comparative mythology approach to understanding Vedas is totally incorrect. And he says, well, it may have some value to those who do literature and so on, but it doesn't explain to you what the Veda actually is. Now, so this explains to you why people have gotten it wrong, because the Western experience or Western understanding of what consciousness is very different from the Vedic experience of consciousness, or the Western tradition related to what consciousness is. The Western tradition, first of all, if you include modern neuroscience, is that brain is equal to mind. That what mind is are the various processes going on in the brain, and consciousness is also specific processes of the brain and the mind. So in other words, the Western view is that there are an infinity of consciousnesses, that each human being or each living being, but of course, traditional Western psychology does not admit of consciousness in non-humans. Possibly now, recently, they say maybe higher mammals because they have self-awareness. But all of this of multiplicity of consciousness is totally opposite to the central understanding of the Veda. The understanding of the Veda is there is one consciousness, there is one light, and you can call this light Shiva, for example, which is often the term that is used even in the Bhagavad Gita, Maheshwara, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita. So uh, you it so there is one light. All of reality in our minds consists within or is situated within our consciousness, right? That's one thing. So now you can look at reality itself um, in three ways from our personal experience. One is existence, that we can imagine existence all across the universe, and that's what's called Vishnu. Consciousness through which we experience this existence is Shiva, and the materiality, not materiality of the outside universe alone, but materiality of our own self, because we are also body, we are consciousness, but also the body in which this light falls, and that is the goddess. So that's where from this single, all-encompassing view of Parabrahma or Brahman, which is the cosmos, including us, including everything that there is, emerges in our mind's eye a triplicate enlargement or triplicate expression of it. And one is the the universe as it exists. And then the second is our consciousness through which we see it, and third is the goddess. Now, how to then go from our experience, the primal awareness that we have, to this light, because this experience of ours is veiled, as I said, through a variety of factors. One is the temperament that we are born with, because we are also the product of our genes, and that comes with certain veiling, and then the way we are raised, and then the way we fall into certain habits, and so which are like blinkers. So we only see things the way we are comfortable saying things. So then the whole question, the worship of the goddess, for example, is to turn in and to get these layers of veils off, so that you are one with that light, which is when you can, with Adi Shankaracharya, speak of that you are not your mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham. You're not your manas, your buddhi, your ahankar, or your chitta, but you are the light, the Atman, the Shiva within you. So now, personally, I think that it all hangs together. It's perfectly consistent with all of science, because now, of course, those in the West, well, I probably didn't complete the thread related to why have Western scholars gotten it wrong? Almost everybody. Why have they gotten it wrong? They're not. They're also trying their best. They're trying to be as, most of them trying to be as honest to their task. They get it wrong because their intuition is attached to this idea of consciousness emerging from the mind, while the heart of the Veda is this vision, or this perspective, which I think is perfectly scientific, because, as I said, we can prove that consciousness cannot be a product of the mind, product of the body, which is really what the Brahma Sutras or the Upanishads or the Bhagavad Gita also say. So if it's not a product of the mind, this is fundamental. This is the fundamental reality in which all of reality, all the physical reality is suspended. But this consciousness is not only transcendent beyond space and time, it's also immanent. It's also within each one of us. And in fact, this is what Parikshit ji was talking about, how Agni or Jala or Vayu, they are all interpenetrating. In fact, there is a famous dialogue in the Brihad Aranyak Upanishad between Gargi and Yajnavalkya, where Yajnavalkya explains to Gargi that all the bhutas are oth-prot, that they are entangled with each other. And what does it really mean? First of all, the way we look at the details of how the mind works in the Vedic system is that, okay, you have the 25 tattvas of the Sankhya system. And now the Vedas also say that you have 11 Rudras, and Rudras are the veilings or unveilings of consciousness. So taken together, in the Vedic system itself, you have 36. Now, 36 tattvas. Now, in the Vedas, these tattvas are elements of experience, as we know, and 24 of the 25 of Sankhya are related to Prakriti and its emanations, including our senses and your manas, buddhi, ahankar. And these then within us, because we are Prakriti, within us the mind works in a hierarchical sense, although where all the layers are also interpenetrating in a counterintuitive way. And these are the 5 koshas, the Annamaya kosha, which is our body, the Pranamaya kosha, which are the various processes going on within our body, the Manomaya kosha, which is the mind. And what is the mind normally? The mind is memories. What do we do normally? Most of the time, we, just as when we are on the internet, we go from one site to another. Likewise, when we are not on the internet, when we are on the internet of our mind, we go from one memory or one thought to another, right? So it's only a collection of memories. That's what mind is. But above that is buddhi, which is the Vijnanamaya kosha, which is the intellect. And so the intellect can be trained through education, through experience, through introspection. But above the intellect is ahankar. And ahankar is a kind of a dark box, and you can call it the unconscious, if one wanted to draw parallels with other schools of thought. And that's where it's much harder. That is our Karan Sharif, which is what makes us do things in specific ways. And that is something that we are born with. And that's why ordinarily we are not able to look within this module of ahankar, this kosha. This is the Anandamaya kosha of ahankar, which hides our true self from us, because our true self is beyond ahankar, which is where the Atman comes in. This is the model. And in this model, then, or in this particular view, since the Atman interpenetrates all of reality, it interpenetrates not only the Anandamaya kosha, the Vijnanamaya kosha, or the Manomaya kosha, the Pranamaya kosha, and the Annamaya kosha. Therefore, you can, by studying any of these koshas, also obtain a lot of insight. However, to completely view that light in all its glory, you have to sort of open up that ahankar within you, that aspect of yourself where your ahankar is hidden, and which is where your aham is, which is where your sense of your experienced self is, which is what constitutes your experience as a jiva. The Vedas always insists that the Atman and Brahman are the same, the Jivatma and the Paramatma are the same. But in our normal experience, the Jiva is different from Paramatma, because in our normal experience, we are constrained by the many parameters that we must be guided by. Now, in Mandukya Upanishad, we are told of the 4 states of awareness: Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, and Turiya. So in the Jagrat Avastha, we are guided by our normal waking experience of physical reality. Because now the question might be asked, what is consciousness? What is this awareness? Now, this awareness is perhaps the witness. That's one way. Hey, there are 2 cells, like the 2 birds of the Rig Veda, or the Upanishads. There are 2 cells within you. One is, who is the Jivatma? Hey, I'm doing this, or I want this, or worried about this or the other. The other is the detached self within, who you are able to, in some moments, have a conversation. Now, this idea of the 2 cells, of course, is also in the parable of the chariot, or Krishna and Arjuna, or the senses are the horses, the reins are the mind, and you have Jivatma, who's Arjuna, who's doing all the action, and you have Paramatma, who's Krishna, who is your Atman, right? Who's sort of detached, who's guiding you, if you let yourself be guided. So this sort of explains everything, hangs together scientifically. That's what I want to emphasize. It hangs together, because the question that may be asked, even in the normal scientific conversation, is, where does freedom, the individual freedom come in? Because just as the Vedas say, there is rhythm, there are laws, and from rhythm comes ritu, seasons. Everything is by law. You have laws of science, which undergird all unfoldments. Everything, whether it's conceptual or physical, should be determined completely by its past and its history. And if that is so, where does our freedom come in? Or do we have freedom at all? And this is, of course, something that is completely confused and befuddled Western scholars. And in fact, one view that's been pushed around is that that we are all zombies, that there are traces in our mind of our experience, but in reality we have no freedom, and so all that unfolds is completely determined by the past, and really you have no choice if you if you accept, as you should, that everything is by law. Because if there wasn't any, if everything was not unfolding by the law, then there is chaos. Now, where is the resolution that the Vedas provide us? Because the Vedas do provide us a resolution. The Vedas tell us that there is only one Atman. And in fact, my recent paper in Journal of AI and Consciousness, where I prove a theorem which I call the one observer theorem. Mathematically, one can prove that there is only one observer, and that means there is one Atman. If there's one Atman, then where multiplicity comes from is our not identifying with that Atman, and being totally governed by actions which are a part of a causal chain. And therefore, you don't have freedom. And that's where the understanding of the whole idea of karmic chain comes in. We don't have freedom until such time that we are able to go to the source of light within us, which is which is prakasha, and this prakasha is another name for Shiva, for example, in the Shaivite tradition. So once you are in line with that, then you are a part of a cosmic unfoldment, as in Cain Upanishad. If you think you are doing it, then you're not doing it. Only if you think you're not doing it, then you are a part of this whole unfoldment, because there is only one consciousness. So, in other words, all of us, every human being, and all animals as well, are expressing this consciousness, this one Atma, and that is the very heart uh, of Vedas. And this is so subtle that scholars who approach reality from the intuition of materiality, where consciousness is an emergent phenomenon, um, find it very difficult to get it. And all that it requires is a change in perspective. And that's why you can talk of chamatkar or epiphany associated with this understanding or with this enlightenment. This enlightenment is just a shift of perspective. And the moment you shift that perspective, you are free. That's when you are born again. That is what punarjanman is. Punarjanma is not the end of the physical life chain, but rather at that moment when you have been set free, because then of course you can come back to your normal sanskaras uh, when you are a part of this world. But this is what a jivan mukta is. Jivan mukta is one who is free because this person is aware of that person's true self being his atman. And 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 as we see, then we can understand not only how societies function or how minds can be can go into states of delusion, which is moha and mother. Mother is uh, false pride, which is what's, for example, is happening in the Western Academy. This whole idea of intersectionality, that you are nothing but your physical life story related not only just to your person, but also to your ancestors based on the color of your skin. And therefore, all that you should see uh, must be viewed only through this lens. And just imagine um, professors who've done critical thinking, or who one would assume had done logic or used logic, have bought into it. So, in other words, mind can so very easily be led astray. And once it's led astray, moham and madam, moha and mad. So, once it's led astray, you are completely in control, or you're completely controlled by thoughts or ideas, by ideology. And that's what the prison is. And this uh, Atman is the absolute, is the referent. Mind can have different contents, and those contents can take you in one direction or the other, because these contents of the mind in the chitta, for example, are stories, and we attach ourselves to stories, and we are totally guided with them. In fact, not just us, we are not different from um, our pets, for example. And I mentioned this before. When you go to a mall and you go to a pet store, you'll see these dogs in cages, and each of those dogs will completely beseechingly look into your eyes. They want to be adopted because you represent a story for them. And if you adopt them, they totally buy into your story, whatever you do, whatever you want them to do. So are human beings. As we are born, we want to get connected to stories, and those are the stories that are given to us um, in our upbringing. And that's why, if these stories are not good, they can lead you to asuric life, or the life of a rakshasic life, or you can do horrible things. The same child who had the potential to become divine, div means light, divinity, go to divinity, become divine, be creative, uh, chooses the wrong path, because that wrong path is the path of the mind. Mind by itself has no capacity to be free. Mind by itself is tied into one storyline, to one experience of pashuhood. In fact, there is a verse in the Rig Veda which says there are two kinds of pashus or animals, uh, quadrupeds, chatushpad or dvipad, quadrupeds or bipeds. Bipeds are humans. We are also pashu. And that's why if we see that light within us, which is why Shiva is also called Pashupati, he's the he's the Lord of the Pashus. But if we see that light, that's when we are set free. Now, I don't know how much of more time I have. I think spoken for about 30 minutes. And so I'll stop here, and or if you want me to speak further, I can do so as well.
I was really struck by the argument that you advanced in your talk, that the world is composed of words. That reminded me of Bhartari in many ways. But then you beautifully, demonstrated the eclectical range to substantiate and also to elaborate and also substantiate your argument. But if we take this argument ahead, and we talk to the other argument that you advanced in your talk, that was the idea that Vedas talk to all religions. Like you also mentioned that Vedas talk to all religions, for example, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, so on and so forth. So if we have to establish this transcendental reality of Vedas, then where are the epistemological evidences for this? And how are we going to do this? Is that, I mean, Professor Paranjpe sir also talked in his thematic address about, he also touched upon the idea of transcendentalism of Veda in a way that it divides the boundaries between the East and the West. But if I go to my class and if I have to teach my students the importance of Vedas in the contemporary times, then my students will ask for the epistemological frameworks and also epistemological evidence to believe in such ideas that Vedas also talk to other religions and other religions accept this transcendentalism of Vedas. So if you could please reflect on this issue, I would be very grateful to you. Thank you.
This is a question to Parikshit ji.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed the question. Could you repeat it?
Let me summarize the question for you.
Yes,
The
sir,
question
sorry.
is if the Vedas speak of a transcendental truth, which is also immanent, do other religions also believe in the same epistemology? Do they also believe in a transcendental truth? And because the questioner said, you mentioned that perhaps this has also played a central role in Judaism and Islam and Christianity. So that's the question.
So the problem is several fold, and so I'll try to make it brief. One is the Veda sees all existence as one reality, no difference. So the problem of then the problem comes how does this one reality allow evil or bad things or disease and death in it? But Vedanta teaches us that not only is all one reality, but the way we are seeing reality is mistaken. And that is why the concept of mithya comes. Normally, the concept of Maya is misunderstood. We think Maya is illusion. Maya is not truly illusion, and especially in the Veda, all is real. Ekam sat. Tad ekam, tad adbhutam, tad satyam. So all is truth. It is the way we see is erroneous because we are at a certain realm of consciousness. And then, of course, we come to Sri Aurobindo's concept, which is, again, he takes it from the Veda and validated by his own experience, which comes in several creation hymns of the Veda, is the supreme reality involutes, hides itself, ritena ritam apihitam dhruvam, in the fifth mandala, 62nd sukta, first rik. The truth, sat, hides itself from itself. And in several creation hymns, whether we come to the 10th mandala, it often says that the supreme being that breathed, that lived without any need for air or anything else, na sada seen no sada sit tadanim, that which was not being nor non-being. So think about it. It was vyakta and avyakta. It is everything. Now, what happens is the other religions take one aspect of it. So they create a transcendental God, a God who is outside and created this universe, but this universe is separate. That is a transcendent God. So they've taken an aspect of the Vedantic thought and separated God from his creation. Why? Because if you attach God to creation, then you have to explain all the problems of evil, death, disease. And the way to explain is to create a duality. And suddenly a duality comes in the panthas that came after Vedanta. And this is a challenge that we see constantly. It is a world that is devoid of an immanent divine. The divine is transcendent somewhere there, giving us arbitrary rules. And then you have the duality of heaven and hell. So now you've been created, now you have to follow those rules. And if you don't follow, you're going to go to an eternal hell or you go to an eternal heaven. However, the moment we say that God is eternal love, a God of eternal love cannot create an eternal hell. That is a very basic understanding. So they took aspects of Veda. Veda influenced and Vedanta influenced the following religions and panthas that came, but unfortunately the complete message, the integrality of Veda and Vedanta was missed, and only an aspect of their truth was taken. The images persist, the symbolism persists, some light persists, but it also gets all obscured and hidden through the mental interference or the theological organized religion trying to take over the spiritual experience. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you. That was, thank you, Pariksith ji. That was a brilliant answer. Thank you very much for joining us. I know that you have to see patients at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We're really grateful that you could make it, and please support us, continue to support us. The next Living Veda conference is likely to be in your own hometown, Jaipur, again, with the support of the Sri Aurobindo Society in Jaipur and other friends. So thank you. We'll let you go. And thank you, sir. Now I have a question for Subhash ji that has come from the audience. And I request a brief answer because we will ask Vamdev ji to give us his address. And after that, we may have time for a few more questions if Subhash, you can stay on. But otherwise, I apologize for this inconvenience. We were late in the inaugural session. So the question, I think, is right up your alley. It says, if Atma and Brahma are one, can it be proved using the material science of mathematics? And I want to tell the questioner that you have written a paper proving that there is only one witness, only one Atma. I remember your, mentioning it in your talk, but I believe I've also got a copy of your paper. But go ahead, please answer this question. Go ahead.
Yeah, good question. And this is something that's, of course, being discussed or debated in computer science circles um, related to consciousness. How many consciousnesses? And if there are so many consciousnesses, how do they even talk to each other? You have multitude of questions. But the intuition behind why there can be only one consciousness is this. Supposing consciousness was a product of complexity. So you create a machine which becomes conscious. But now this machine can be made or can be a subpart of a larger machine, which in turn can be a subpart of an even larger machine. Then you come up with this contradiction that a conscious being has another conscious being who is a part of this person's or this being's consciousness, which is impossible, right? Which is a contradiction. You cannot, because consciousness by itself, it has integrity, is one. So this one cannot have something which is a part of it, because then the conscious agent would not be able to be free, because the conscious agent's freedom would be sort of negated by its own subpart, right? And so this is where it comes from, and I think this is how the traditional arguments in Vedanta also address this question. Now, I must also add something that I forgot to mention, that people have asked, how does the conscious world interact with the material world? Because if they are different, if consciousness is not a property of materiality, it's transcendent, it's something else, how do the two interact? And this question has also been asked within the framework of quantum mechanics. How does the observer influence, or can they interact with each other? And my late friend, the great Indian Malayali physicist, George Sudarshan, and his student Misra, in the 1970s wrote a paper where they showed that just by observation, the experimenter can influence the unfolding of a quantum state. You don't have to interact with it. You can just observe it. By observation, you can control it. And of course, in Vedantic literature, exactly this has been mentioned for centuries, and this is called the Drishti Srishti Vada. The question was asked, well, if everything is according to Rita, why do you need Ishvara? Where does Ishvara come in at all? Why do you need him? The answer is that Ishvara, through his drishti, is able to do srishti. It's through drishti. The Ishvara doesn't have to do anything, doesn't have to actually become, come in a physical form, although can be embodied. Ishvara's Atman can be embodied in an individual, because we can become the medium for the Atma. Any individual can be. And so drishti, according to Drishti Srishti Vada, it's the drishti of the deity which does srishti. And in fact, if any of you who's done Tantra, you would know that Sri Vidya, for example, in Sri Chakra, which is a representation of the cosmos, you have all these triangles, 43 of them, which represent embodied reality or represent the architecture of the mind. Now, within the center is a bindu, and that bindu represents Shiva, because that bindu is infinitesimal. And what it really means is, if you start looking for Shiva within embodied reality, you won't find it. It's always beyond, because anything that happens can be explained in terms of embodiments. So it's always beyond consciousness, because it's not material, it's transcendental, right? I hope I did answer your question.
I'm very happy to be with you, and I'm very honored to be with the previous speakers who have spoken so eloquently and given such a good understanding of Vedas in a modern context. Now, what I want to do, before I even go into the question given to me, is I want to look again at the living Vedas and what we could also call the living Veda traditions. In India, the Vedas kind of fell in the background over time and were no longer the center of attention. That was passed on to Upanishads, then to various Vedanta, various Sampradayas. And it's only in modern times that there's been another return to the Vedas that has gone on. And there's also been the examination of the Vedas by Western scholars, examining it from a place that is, of course, very different. Now, the first thing we need to understand is Vedas come from a different yuga. They are not from our present understanding of time, place, culture, or even language. So the Vedas have to be looked at in a different light. We have to almost go into a different yuga, a different understanding, and a different way of language in order to understand the Vedas, which is very difficult. And also something people don't even have the openness to or recognition of. Vedas are a mantric language. And here, mantric language is not just another form of language. In fact, in this regard, discussing about consciousness, consciousness is not quantitative. It cannot be turned into a quantity in any way. It is not measurable, and it is not something that can be seen. It is the light, it is the seer, as Subhash has explained in the Vedantic view. So the mantra helps us understand this non-quantifiable aspect of reality, which is not only the seer and the light, it is also that unfoldment through mantra, pranava, primordial sound, sound that holds and embodies meaning, sound that is the presence or reflection of the seer. So in the 19th century, there was this idea of return to Vedas. It also impacted the Indian independence movement quite a bit, particularly through Tilak and also through Aurobindo. It impacted the religion, the philosophy through Swami Dayananda and Arya Samaj. And it became then a deeper way of understanding. And here I would like to discriminate a little bit between Veda and Vedanta. First of all, everything that is philosophically discussed in Vedanta is mantrically portrayed in Vedas, going all the way back to the oldest Rig Veda. However, over time, there was this distinction of Vedas, particularly Rig Veda, but also Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, everything but Upanishad as karma kanda, or relating to ritual, and the jnana, or the knowledge, being the Upanishads. And this is actually incorrect. And what the truth is that karma and jnana are the two ways of looking at the Vedic mantras. They have an outer application as ritual, but ritual in the sense of unfolding the sacred order. Everything in life is full of rhythms. We have the seasons of nature. We have various processes in time and various formations in space. So in the ultimate sense, ritual is the way of cosmic order, And karma yoga is action done with consciousness, and we could say consciousness of the transcendent, but essentially consciousness is being present and non-quantifiable as the seer can be there at every moment and yet not be limited by time or space. So there's been these new interpretations and lines of understanding Vedas in modern times. And there is what we would call the Adhyatmic, or you might say Upanishadic interpretation even of Rig Veda. In fact, if you study the Rig Vedic text and other Vedic texts, you'll find that Upanishads quote them all very frequently, or they even paraphrase them. So they did look upon Veda, old Vedic mantras, as the Shruti. And the Vedic mantras need to be understood directly. They're not just simply a matter of logical or philosophical thought or analysis, but that also has its play. For example, when Yajnavalkya makes the great statement in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Aham Brahm Asmi. The I am is Brahman, not the I that I think I am, not the ahankara, but the essential self-awareness is Brahman, the supreme reality, the transcendent, the immanent, the all-encompassing Satchitananda. He says this is what the Rishi Vamadeva meant and saw when he gave us the mantra, Aham Manor Abhavam Suryascha. Aham Manu, I am Manu, and Aham Surya, I am the sun. And then you say, well, what does that have to do with Aham Brahmasmi? Well, in the Vedic language, everything has many levels and dimensions and cannot be reduced to a simple outer form or meaning. Manu is the mind, Manu is the human being, and Atma is the power behind that and also transcendent to it and the foundation of any insight or creativity it has. So in that sense, even Manu represents Purusha, the seer. Now, Aham Surya, here we want to understand Vedas. To understand Rig Veda, you need to understand the Devatas. And Surya is in many respects the supreme being. We say, oh, Surya is the sun. We see the worship of the sun throughout the ancient world, the pyramids of Egypt, the Native Americans here have it. All the ancient cultures had that honoring of the sun. But in the ancient language, remember too, language arose also from images. So the sun had a meaning at an abstract or transcendent level, besides its simply being an outer form. And in that respect, the sun is said to be the Atma, the self, the I, the seer, the knower of all. The famous Vedic mantra is the Gayatri mantra. There are 250 Gayatri suktas in Rig Veda. This is one Gayatri mantra from the Rishi Vishwamitra, but it is also then calling that supreme light, Savita, which is the transformative power of the divine light and also the power of the seer. So that understanding of Surya as Atma on many levels, then that then becomes the basis of Brahman, and that becomes the basis of the statement of Yajnavalkya. And even this Shvetashvatara Upanishad, I think it's the second section, when he describes yoga, he quotes Vedic verses and Vedic deities like Agni and Soma. So in this respect, the Vedas hold the seed and the foundation of all the teachings that have come out of the Dharmic traditions. including the Vedic sciences, which are Ayurveda, Jyotish, Vastu, of course, all the sciences of sound and mantra. And the Vedic mantras are multidimensional, and they have various levels of meaning. The Adhyatmic relative to the inner self, Adibhutic relative to material factors, Adidaiva relative to divine energies, Adiyagya. Veda is yagya. Yagya is offering. It is not sacrifice. It is an internal offering to the transcendent in which we become one with all. And the yagya has a bahri yagya, or outer ritual, which is what we do when performing a ritual, like the fire offerings, offering different fragrant substances, wood, ghee, and so forth. And then there is the antar yaga, or the inner yagya, in which we offer ourselves. We offer the 5 factors that the Vedas talk about: the vak, speech, prana, vital energy, chakshu, shrotra, the seeing power, and the hearing power, and manas as mind. We offer that into the inner fire. And that inner fire, or antar agni, is also atma, and is ultimately also chidagni, or the fire of consciousness. Now, in that perspective, I just want to introduce briefly what I think are the most important modern lines of the study of the Vedas and new interpretations of the Vedas. And we begin with Sri Aurobindo, Secret of the Vedas. Right now, we are working on developing a Vedic educational center, or Vedic university, along with the Sri Aurobindo ashram, and also the city of Oroville. We'll be discussing that and working with that and starting that in February a bit. And Sampadananda Mishra will be the main person behind that. I'm trying to help in the way that I can, but this is coming to fruition even as a institution at this particular time. Sri Aurobindo also hymns of the mystic fire, and he also brought out the need to understand this deeper level of Vedic symbolism, in which the symbol is not a symbol of some visible thing or some ordinary activity. The symbol is connecting to the transcendent symbolic thinking, where you're learning through images, or you're following the power of light. You're not necessarily seeing forms. And also what we call analogical thinking. Oh, Atman is like the sun. Atman is like the moon. Atman is like a Vayu. How can we understand Atma outwardly that way? Because there is the Atma in all things. Vayu is the movement of Akasha. Vayu is the source of life. And yet Vayu has no form of its own. So it's very much connected symbolically to Atma, but that's a different level of understanding. Sri Aurobindo's work was mainly brought through Kapali Shastri. His Siddhanjana goes in detail through, I think, the first 120 suktas of the Rig Veda. I was closely associated with M.P. Pandit, who was Kapali Shastri's disciple. In fact, it was M.P. Pandit. I visited him in 1979 and showed him my work on the Vedas, which was a personal thing. And he said he would publish that in India for me. I said, oh, that's great. But I said, you know, I'm not a scholar. This is my own intuitive study. He says, that's good, because if you had been a scholar like all the rest, you would be producing the same type of meaningless things that they are producing. So then he began publishing my work in various Sri Aurobindo publications. And that tradition is developed in many ways, and even what Sakshi is doing with Professor Kashyap has done a tremendous expansion of that, even bringing in the other Vedas, including the Yajurveda. In fact, I would have to say that apart from Rig Veda, The most important Vedic text is the Shukla Yajurveda Samhita, and that is also unfolding this antaryaga, or this inner sacrifice that is yoga, but again, using to great extent an outer symbolism, and actually a lot of the symbolism of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And in fact, this religion of the sun we find throughout the ancient world is also a religion of Atma, Purusha, the seer, the knower, and the Vedic teachings overall. And then through my connection with Ramana Maharshi, I discovered and was gradually drawn to the teachings of Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni. This was through K. Natation, who had been with Ramana since the age of 12. He was born in 1912. He didn't pass away, I think it was 2009. He had finished the 12 volumes of Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni's work. Ganapati was the greatest modern scholar, writer, poet. His Uma Sahasram of 1,000 verses is done in 40 chapters, each with a different Sanskrit meter. He also examined the Vedas. One of his disciples was Kapali Shastri. And he also gave this understanding of the Antaryaga, Baharyaga, and the Vedic Devatas overall. He had another disciple named Ramarshi Devarat, who did his own Vedic verses called Chandodarshana, and he became the main inspiration behind Maharishi Yogi's approach to the Vedas. In fact, Maharishi brought him to the West a few times, I think all the way up until the 1970s. So that return to the Vedas also came through him. So I had done a number of translations and studies of Vedas, but curiously, I was often echoing Ganapati's work even before I knew it. Fortunately, the 12 volumes of Ganapati's work that Natation put together, Sampadananda Mishra also edited it. You can get online through the Raman Ashram. So that's another important line. And I also want to mention another figure connected a bit to the Sri Aurobindo line as well, which is Sri Anirvan. He was a Bengali Vedantic and Vedic teacher. He's wrote an extraordinary Veda Mimamsa, which has also been translated, and also worked with, he translated, I think, a lot of Sri Aurobindo's work into Bengali. And in his work, he also studied the symbolism of the Brahmanas and the Aranyakas and the other Vedas. And I would have to say that the teacher who has given the most depth to the Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Vedic connection to Upanishads in detail has been Anirvan. There's an Akshay Prakashan, Harish Chandra, who was also originally part of Voice of India. He's brought these particular texts out. And even as Subhash Kak notes, for the Shatapatha Brahmana, the Agni Chayana, the fire altar, can be done with mantras or with prana. It can be an antaryaga of mantra yoga or prana yoga. So this esoteric Vedic tradition pervades all the Vedic teachings, even into the yoga and Vedanta and Tantra. In fact, the Vedas have what is called their Guhya teachings, secret teachings, and the Guhya Vidya behind the Vedas. And the Upanishads were said to represent that Guhya Vidya, which is there all along. So in other words, every sukta of Rig Veda can be interpreted at an adhyatmic level relative to yoga and Vedanta, including karma yoga, bhakti yoga, mantra yoga, prana yoga, and of course, Vedanta. So these traditions have gone on. Another Swami is Veda Bharati, who's also done some great work with that. So I just want to mention these because there are these new understandings of the Vedas that bridge the gap between Veda and Vedanta, and also have a futuristic vision, and also can be better understood, and also require us to re-examine Vedas. Even Bhagavad Gita speaks of the pranayama as a yajna, dharana dhyana yoga as a yajna. And there are, besides this important Gayatri mantra, there are 10,000 verses in the Vedas, which have almost, many of them, I would say, equal value to Gayatri mantra and equal secrets. Now, that being said, to make another point, the best way to understand the Vedas is through understanding the Devatas, here specifically speaking of Rig Veda. And here, Pariksith very helpfully noted to us the meaning of Agni. And essentially, Vedic deities exist on all levels of the universe, all the lokas, and all the koshas, because all of these manifest from the one. So let us take a quick look at the Agni there. Agni, for example, Ayurveda, we have the Jatar Agni for understanding health. We then move on to the Prana Agni for understanding the prana, but also for understanding the pranayama. We have the eye as the Agni among the senses for seeing. We have the Agni power of the mind for digesting sensory impressions. We have the Agni of the Buddhi for discerning what is true or false, real and unreal, being and non-being. Yoga, Vedanta is all about developing that Agni of the Buddhi. We have the Ananda form of Agni, which is the flame of love, bliss, devotion, desire, and Ananda in the higher sense. We have the Chidagni, the fire of consciousness, the Lalita Sahasranama. She's Chidagni Kunda Sambhuta. She's born of the Kunda of the Chidagni, the altar of the flame of consciousness. And even the Brahmagni, which is Sat, you go Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagna, Brahmanahutam, Brahmeva, Tena Gantavyam Bhava Karma Samadhina. That is the Agni of Brahman, the Sadagni. Of course, Satchidananda is all Agni. So understanding these Agnis, its principles, Pitta, Tejas, Tapas, Agni is Tapas. We have the key to understanding so many things. Then I want to, I don't know, maybe we're losing some time here. I wanted to just introduce quickly Indra and the Indra-Shiva connection. Ganapati Muni equated Indra and Shiva. Vedas also do that. Taittiriya, Chandasam, Vrishabha, Vishwarupa is Indra, who is Omkara. As Ganapati says, Indra is the lightning aspect of the mantra, and Shiva is the sound aspect of the mantra. Even in the Aitari Upanishad, Prajnanam Brahma also goes back to Indra and also to Vamadeva's mantras to Indra in the Rig Veda itself. And I'm going to say here something very you might find interesting. Shiva is in many ways the supreme deity of the Vedas going back to Rig Veda. Many of you may find that hard to understand. Of course, the name Shiva isn't there. Rudra is there, but let's look at it very simply. Shiva has three eyes, sun, moon, and fire. Agni, Soma, Agni, Surya, and Soma. And these are the three main deities of the Vedas. Agni, sacred fire, Surya, the sun. and Soma, the whole Soma Sukta, Soma, sun and moon, Agni Soma. And then the fourth, Indra, is the Vidyut, or the lightning. So all four are aspects of Shiva, and all four are, in a way, aspects of Indra. In fact, Indra in Upanishads is also said to be the Drashta, or the seer. Indrani is the Devi of seeing, Indrakshi. And Im mantra is also seeing. In fact, Brahmarshi Devarat also talks about Im as the secret pranava of the Vedas. Indra as Shiva is also the power of sound, the power of the mantra. We could go on to that quite a bit. Vishnu is Upendra. Indra is Marutwan. Rudra is the father of the Maruts. Rudra is the Adi Yogi. Rudra Soma are also the fierce forms, the Raudra forms, the Soma, the Saumya forms, sun, the moon, all these things. And Shiva is, of course, in the Rudram said to be Agni Somatmakam Jagat. And then finally, and briefly, I know our time is limited, what is Soma? Soma is a sacred plant, but Soma is also the essence of the Ananda, or the bliss. This is also Soma as the moon, as the Ananda. And Soma is the state of Samadhi. So all yoga, and even the tantric yoga, is based upon these three factors: Agni, Surya, and Soma. Agni being the Kundalini, and the three lower chakras being the Agni Kanda, Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura. And then the three middle chakras are said to be the region of Surya as the sun, but also even connected to Vayu as centered in the Hridaya, or the heart, Manipura, Anahata, and Vishuddha. And three higher chakras, the realm of Soma, Vishuddha, Agnya, and Sahasrar. Sahasrar is always called Soma, and the realm of Soma, this is the tantric yoga, the three realms there. And so the yoga, the chakras, the Kundalini is an antar-yaga through the Vedic deities, the ascent of Agni and the descent of the Soma, and the expansion of the Surya as the Atma, or the Hridaya. So in other words, these energies, these devatas are there in all the yogas and all the practices. Indra, like Shiva, is also connected to the Vayu and Vata, and also has form as the sun and space. So we understand those devatas, but we understand them at an adhyatmic level, and we understand them as universal forces, because the basis of the Vedic thought is to take us from the many to the one by seeing the one in the many and the many in the one. The one is universal, the universal is one. The seer is the essence of all. There is also the sound that is beyond speech and word. That is where Vedas come from. There's also the light beyond all manifestation. So Veda then takes that reality in a more mantric, symbolic form in this cosmic language, in which each sound has multidimensional meaning at all levels of existence, and can be the seed of every aspect of wisdom and understanding, and can help us understand whether it is the biological forces through the Ayurveda, the forces of geology were also based upon. There's an Agni in the center of the earth, all the different forms of light in the cosmos. So the ultimate Vedic science is beyond all these sciences, bringing in an Atma Vidya and a Brahma Vidya into every thing. Space and time are just coordinates of the mind, location in space and location in time. Consciousness, as Subhash said, transcends the mind. In fact, the mind is not conscious. The mind has a reflection of consciousness. Mind is a conditioned entity. Brain is the physicalization of mind. Consciousness is beyond body and mind, but its reflection is what allows the manifestation to occur. The Jivatma is the flame within us, and that becomes the Paramatma, which is the sun. That is another part of the Vedic yoga. So I will stop my talk here, and I'm very happy this discussion is going on. And let us take it on to many different levels and many different locations. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.